Here, you can exercise your rights to freedom every day without leaving your home. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stain City way.
Good afternoon, it's good to have you joining us this Tuesday for Real Talk with me, Anele. So who doesn't enjoy escaping into the make-believe roles that are written, directed and produced by television and film creators? Whether it's getting your emotions swept away by a rom-com, anxiously sitting through cliffhangers of your favorite series, or having your perspective changed through an informative documentary, the world of film and television amplifies all our lives greatly. Today in studio, I have amazing women in film and TV who are the brains behind some of our all-time favorite viewing pleasures. Before I go any further, take a look at this.
When you feel woman also funny mal. Ndakunika uhamba uyothanda isithuthuthu esikhulu.
Ayonyani lonto.
Uthe kuma apha wena ufuna uapply for imatric.
Asengathi wale into ilibalayo wena apha Bratsuna. Mali yami.
Ngumgcini isihlalo wemali yakho. Yeva ke? Ndimi umuntu okumele wazi uba kwenzeka ntoni. Bendikunikela into obuhambe uyo-apply for imatric.
Hawu umsuzo onukayo ngokulo ngixela wona.
Yamva.
We remember that one, right? If you once found yourself gripped by SABC's One Follows the Street and its stellar cast, then you have writer and producer Mokopi Shale to thank for that. Her introduction into media industry was as a radio drama actress before landing an opportunity to be a Take 5 presenter. Remember that? I used to call in. She was one of the producers on Mrs. Right Guy starring Dineo Muketsi. She's one of the writers on the smash hit TV series It's Complicated, and she's the co-founder of Fusebox Productions. We welcome Mokopi Shale to Real Talk.
Thank you.
How are you nervous? You're like, how are you nervous? Like,
you must be. Otherwise you become arrogant and then you make a mistake. So you must always be aware that this medium deserves respect.
That your grandfather didn't leave you this medium in his will.
He went.
My mother used to say that, Evan, don't behave like your grandfather left you this in his will.
He didn't leave it to you.
Work.
Work. And be serious.
So, you know, when I was a child and I'd watch TV and I'd watch, so I understood TV, right, a little bit because like, you know, I had people who were working in there. But when it comes to the production of it, you know, and the production of adverts and all of that, I just thought they landed up there. I just thought somebody went to the SABC, dropped the stuff off, like, okay, play it here, and that was it. How did you know that, you know, this is something that you can do?
I didn't know.
Exactly.
I didn't know. I thought it was magic. I also thought it was magic. All I knew was that I wanted to work in television. I did a drama degree. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. My father said, Mukup, and I'm like, I'm going to work in television. He's like, doing what? I'm like, I don't know. But I think for me, the moment it shifted was when I saw Mas Chaba Musheshe on Take 5.
Okay.
And I was like, this girl also not hipstery kholo, you know, she's upakile and she's wapapa. And I was like, I can do this. If she can do it, I can do it, you know?
Okay, so the moment between I can do this to the moment where you're actually doing it, here, I want to know here.
I spent a year trying to finish my degree, and then my mother heard they were looking for radio drama actors, Komotsweding FM, and then she said, just go try one. Like, try is the best. So I went to go try, and they liked me, and I did radio drama acting. I did a youth show. I still didn't know how television worked. I didn't know what I was going to do, and then there was those nationwide auditions. And then I decided, okay, everybody, my family forced me to go and audition, because I was like, crooked teeth, big hips, it's not going to happen. Crooked teeth, big hips, it's not going to happen. And when I got there, I'm like, these beautiful people, I'm never going to make it. So I was like, you know what, just relax and have fun. Because you're not going to get this. You're not going to get this. There's no way when you're in lines with these beautiful people that you're going to make it with your crooked teeth and big hips.
So some of the people who were in line with you, do you recognize some of them from today?
Kim Kim Engelbrecht, Losha Cooper was there.
Girl, you were right. You were in the line with
No,
hotties.
I remember those two because we were the loudest in that line.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I made it, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? Me? Okay, is this real?
When do I start then?
When do I start? And they said, come in January. And I went, and that's when I started to understand television production.
Okie doke. So
Only then.
So now, it's very seldom that people quickly make the shift from in front of camera to behind the camera and creating. And your drama degree obviously aids that because I know my sister did drama.
Yeah.
You guys are taught how to breathe.
Yes.
You guys are out here doing
You
this.
can turn
before,
yourself into
I was
a
like, what are you
monster.
doing? Just act. So obviously you get all facets of it from your drama degree. How quickly do you decide, actually, I get the front of house, but back of house is where I want to be?
What was the interesting thing about Take 5 is that because it was an educational show, they also wanted to give us skills. So they didn't believe that people must just be presenters. They wanted to make sure that you had the longevity with your career. So they actually forced us to do research and script writing. But I just took to it naturally because I just loved that part of production.
Tim Howard was on Take 5,
Yes.
right? That's why he's such a good...
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So they actually force you to participate and find your place. So my place was in research and script writing and producing. I think Kim was more, she's always been just a performer and an entertainer.
Yeah,
She's not like she
yeah.
doesn't have the skills for writing and research, but that was where her
strength is-
natural strength. Pule was also a writer, Pule Tlatswayo. That's why he does all those wonderful, amazing plays at the market. So we all found our places. I think with a lot of us, some people just went more into like camera work, and
Yeah.
we all were forced to find another skill because the industry can be brutal.
Okay, so I know many people who try to write a movie, a series, a poem, look, anything. What's your point of departure when you're writing, when you're creating something like Follows the Street?
With Mfolozi, what was lucky for us was that we got a brief from the SABC. And they said, 20 years of democracy, how are we going to celebrate it? What are you going to say? What do you have to say as a creative? I think for me, it's always like, do I have anything to say about this? If I have nothing to say about it, I prefer not to even touch it because that's when you find stories that are a bit wishy-washy, where you don't know what...
You're making up things.
Yeah, because you're like, I don't know what you're saying. So for me, it's important to know what I'm saying. So with everything that I've written, it's always about what am I saying. I think for me, though, I'm a romance nut. So I'm always trying to add like romance and spicing.
But is that who you are yourself? Like, love?
Oh, love is my thing, girl. I'm just about love. Everybody must be loved and being loved and be loved by everybody. Love for you, love for you, love for... I just want to give it, and I want people to find where they belong in terms of love and relationships. Okay.
So is that why it was easy for you? I'm not saying it was easy, but I mean, it came naturally for you to do things like Mrs. Right Guy.
Yeah, it came naturally. And also because when I was 12, I stole my sister's romance novel. And
Nose and Boons?
No, it was even the West ones. You know those thick ones where...
Daniel Steele?
Yeah, the West ones. So I was reading it under the covers, and then I fell in love with romance. So I did so much reading of romance that I knew the formula for romance. So I think romance just comes naturally for me because of that. I love, yes, but the formula for a romance comes easily for me. So I think when we started writing the story, Katarina Wienek was like, no, I'm just tired of this thing. And I'm like, no, I know the formula. She said, okay, can you do it? And I'm like, okay, me and Pusetsa are going to take this over, and and we did our thing, and it just popped, and it worked.
Was there something you were seeing on TV and you... Because sometimes you create amazing things like Follows the Street or, you know, Mrs. Right Guy. When you want to fix something that you are watching on TV, you're like, I'm so tired of seeing myself on TV being like this. I'm so tired of us being represented like this. Was that like a bit of your driving force?
For me, with Mfolozi specifically, I wanted to make commentary about choices. I think for me, the big thing in my life is about the choices that we as human beings make. I think we have the capacity to make the choices that destroy our lives, and that once I destroy my own life, I destroy your life. You destroy your neighbor's lives, then it's a community thing, then it's a big thing. So for me, if you look at all my series, it's about the choices that people are making and how they're not serving them. And for me, with Mfolozi Street, it was about 20 years later. What are the choices that we're making, and are they serving our society? And I use all those characters to talk about, look at this young boy who has this opportunity with a grandmother who wants to give him everything. Look at this man who actually should not be pretending to be heterosexual simply because society judges them. Look at all these people and the choices that they're making and how they are simply not serving them. It was the same thing for me. It's complicated. It's the same thing for me. You know, every series that I do, it's like, what are your choices and are they serving you? And if they're not, why are you doing it?
So you created, do you go as far as to scripting, dialogue? Girl, bye.
So I go from like the foundation, from like, what is the controlling idea? Our choices make us. That's the first thing. Then I go, okay, so we must create characters that are making terrible choices.
Do you give like the characters the names?
Yes, I like names.
Really?
If you look at all my names, they say something about somebody. So I was like, if I have to give a name, I always go and research. What does the name really mean? And does it talk? You know, like the stories that we grew up with, go high school.
Yeah.
Like those names were deep.
And also, you come from radio drama where a name had to say a lot before even the person speaks, because we never get to see them.
Out the Maritaba, you're like, so clearly.
So you're like dramatic by nature.
Deep drama girl.
Today on Real Talk, the female creatives in our TV, film, and advertising worlds that you want to know more of. Make sure you come back after this. Maritab. Welcome back to Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. My next guest is the founder of Nayana Pictures, which is 100% female and black-owned media house. Her strength, making films on human rights, women and children. Her accolades speak for themselves. She has been a judge and won 2 BAFTAs, darling. And one of them is here. This thing is so heavy. That's the British Academy of Film and Television Awards. Over and above being an Emmy nominee. Hey, man. This filmmaker has produced numerous award-winning documentaries and films for the likes of the CNN, the BBC, National Geographic, and the SABC, including a 2011 documentary titled Zimbabwe's Forgotten Children, for which she has received an esteemed Peabody Award. Take a look at a snippet of the work of Xoliswa Sithole.
Bengutu kanoka ona pakugar lipikuata usikele susikiro chaga na mali ndinya ndasinga bugonu kumbira mu saka zvaito ndremerawo ndikumbire mu taitaenda pamarobhotsi okumbira mari topinda totenga chikafu.
Producer-reporter Xoliswa Sithole will accept the Peabody.
Thank you very much. I'm very humbled with this award. We'd like to thank the phenomenal children of Zimbabwe who were brave, fantastic, and who opened their hearts to us. And as a result of the success of the film, we have been able to raise a lot of money for the children, and there's enough money for them to go through to high school. And True Vision Productions formed a foundation, and the foundation is actually working with Richard Curtis, the man behind Make Poverty History, For Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill Gate, and we are now supporting 10 schools in Zimbabwe. So I'd really like to say thank you very much.
So I have so many, deep questions that are going to enlighten people, but I have to start off with the shallow side. Did you work out before you had to go and get this award? Because it's quite heavy.
No, I didn't. I was quite surprised when they nominated the film for a Peabody.
Really?
And a BAFTA.
And a BAFTA. So obviously they happen over there. So you fly over there, you put on your dress, girl, and this is exciting.
Fly over there, you put on a dress, there are designers. If you choose to use any designer because it's advertising, and you go up there, you drink champagne and you hobnob with people. But you know what? We are phenomenal people, so you just take it in your stride.
So you're like, oh, hello, Colin Firth. Hi, Adele. Oh my word, oh my word. Okay, so I want to speak about the documentary, The Forgotten Children of Zimbabwe, right? The premise of it, explain it to me.
I was a refugee in Zimbabwe from the age of 3. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I always say I'm Zimbabwean and South African. So basically, the BBC, I was doing a documentary already called Child of the Revolution, as someone who was raised under the revolution in Zimbabwe, because I saw the Chimurenga War, and my mother was married into the Sithole political family. My uncle was the founder of ZANU. So basically, I was doing that film. Then the BBC wanted the film. I said no. Then they said, okay, fine, just go to Zimbabwe, see what you can do, and we will let you do that. And that's really what happened in our research. We ended up going back to the children. And really, the film is about how children struggle when the politics and the economics of the country is not right.
Yeah, because you find, I mean, you know, with Zimbabwe, when things really went down the drain, the adults had to leave to go and find work elsewhere. And these adults had children. You know, what is happening with them? Is that what you were delving into?
Yes, we were delving into children, but then what actually, and then also there's the issue of HIV/AIDS, and then there's the issue of just the economy. Then there's the issue of the human rights. So, but what we eventually found in terms of our research was it actually boiled down to education. How we now found kids who couldn't afford $2 US to go to school. And the irony of it is that Mugabe's legacy is education. Because I was educated in Zimbabwe, and I can tell you that there is nowhere in the world where I cannot hold my head up because of that education. And now you are having lots of children who are being educated by NGOs, and they can't afford to go to school. So that was the whole irony of how the education in the country was really affecting kids.
So when you're like a filmmaker in this regard, right, and you're so close to the story, like you say, your mother was married into the political family of the Sitholes, and you grew up there, and you're a refugee there. What do you have to be aware of that you don't become too close to it so that, you know, you miss something? You know, when you're so up close to something, you can miss kind of a bigger picture, so you kind of have to move yourself away.
I go in. It's not the first film. This was the third. I've been nominated 3 times, and I've won twice.
Those are good averages.
I go in. I go in, and it's just difficult, but I go in. But every time when a documentary is very difficult in that when you are dealing with human rights issues, you go in. You just go in, and it's tough, it's difficult. In terms of pulling back, yes, you have to pull back for the evolution of the story. So for instance, you cannot interfere maybe when a child is very sick. The story has to evolve. Where you interfere is when you feel that, okay, this is now critical. Or when the documentary is finished, then you say, okay, hang on a minute. These children that we are filming, they are not going to school. We need to create a foundation. In fact, one of the kids is now second-year university at the University of Zimbabwe. And you then do what you can after the fact. Because if you interfere whilst it's happening, then you're interfering with the unfolding of the story.
And the true message of the story. Because my next question for you was going to be, you know, sometimes you get so attached to something. How do you stop yourself from having the hero syndrome where you want to save everyone?
I go home, I cry, I pray. Every morning when I do this, it's not fun. It is difficult. I've done films whereby in 1999, I did a documentary called Shouting Silent. And that was about, my mother had just passed on through HIV, and people were not talking about it.
And you were like...
And I was bearing witness to the pandemic of HIV that we were experiencing in this country during the time of Thabo Mbeki's denialism. So I bore witness to that. And I was basically saying, my mother died of this, and I want to find out what happens to girls. Or, you know, it's a different gamut of topics that I've had to deal with in terms of my work. And you get in and you pray. You pray because you also pray to find the right story. When you're researching, you come across so many kids. So how do you know that the trajectory of that story is going to go this way? It's your gut, it's your instinct, but you pray.
I'm picking up that, you know, because we have to be tough, yeah? You know, you're a filmmaker, you must be tough. Like, and people are like, she's this woman filmmaker, she must be tough. But you're unapologetically feminine about your approach to making your art.
I'm very happy to be a woman. I'm unapologetically feminine, beautiful, wonderful, amazing, I'm a feminist, but I'm also tough.
Okay.
I'm not a pushover. I fight when I have to fight, and people in the industry know that. But we've been fighting.
Okay. Hold that thought when you say I fight when I have to fight, and people in the industry know that. Clarissa is staying with us. After the break, we'll welcome back Mukupi Shale, who was here in the first segment. The boss lady who's at the helm of National Film and Video Foundation will also be with us. So come back. This is about to get interesting. Don't go nowhere. Welcome back from a rainy Johannesburg. You're live with Real Talk right here on SABC 3. Since its birth, many, many moons ago, the South African film and TV industry has been male-dominated, partly because of restrictive and discriminatory laws. Since the dawn of the democracy, can we confidently say the participation of women in senior positions has greatly improved? Zama Mkhosi, CEO of the National Film and Video Foundation, is joining Xoliswa Sithole as well as Mukupi Shale on this very couch where we're discussing females, women in the creative field. So before we went to the break, and I wanted to speak to you, but now she's got me on a tangent here. Before we went to the break, you said you fight. What was your last fight about?
What was my last fight about? Oh my gosh. I don't remember because
don't mention names. I don't like to get sued.
No. As I'm getting older, I'm picking my battles. So I don't remember actually what my last... I don't fight as much as I used to when I was younger.
Give me your biggest fight then.
My biggest fight has always been about the inclusion of women, but women not at a developmental level, because women are always seen as that. And as a feminist, I do actually think that men just take readily to action, but they are not necessarily better than us. I don't know, you can find a man, white or black, who's got that.
The only man is the man on the mask.
Yes. So basically, I've always felt that. And at the same time, I have always felt that you need to have a situation whereby women's companies are sustainable. Two, you also need, it's not just about giving women work, it's also about the content. Because if women are producing masculine content, then we are in trouble.
Because then it's the same.
So my fight always, even if I'm given a project, where is gender? Gender must always be at the top. If there is no gender to any agenda being gender at the top, then there is no agenda.
So, Zama, for you, I mean, at the helm of the NFVF, right? You're sitting there and you're deciding, you know, you're funding some things and you are mentoring some things and you're molding certain avenues. What's your main agenda when you're looking at these things?
You know, when I first started, there was no women agenda specifically. There was just an agenda to fund stories that qualify according to the criteria, etc. However, there was that issue that the reality was that there were not enough women that were coming through the system. And we know that, as you were saying, that the output, we're seeing that there was not enough women's stories that are being told. Women were only working at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to filmmaking. So something had to happen, even though there was no law that said women can't apply or women do not have access. But somehow that is what was happening. So it took intervening directly. It took saying, you know what, we are going to put aside resources that are going to be ring-fenced, especially for women filmmakers. And once we started doing that, we have seen a huge shift in the past 3 or 4 years in terms of more women's stories being told, as Xoliswa is saying, but also more women being at the helm of actually making the films, as opposed to them just, you know, being, you know, at the
coming to do costume design.
No, not at all. Because the money that we put aside, that we ring fence, we insisted that those projects must not only be led by women, but every head of department needs to be women. And more importantly, even the writers need to be women, because we're trying to get exactly to the core of what Xoliswa is saying, that we wanted stories with that are women-centric.
Yeah.
We wanted stories that tell women in a positive light, showing them as heroes, not just as sidekicks.
Yeah.
We had had enough of that. And I must say, the program has really been quite successful.
So, Mukupi, for you, do you find that, you know, you create something and you want a story and you're going somewhere with it, and then you can't find like a woman director?
There are women directors, but not a lot of them are getting the breaks that they need. And because there are 2 or 3, they're all always working.
Yeah.
So it's always a challenge to find women directors to come in and do the directing on stories. But we do try where possible. I think Ketu and I, for many years, have been trying to develop as many women as we can in every project. I mean, we've developed people who've just come straight from varsity, some people who've just the matric, and we've developed them. And a lot of them, I think somebody said to us, but why is your company 90% women, black women? And I'm like, because we're black women. And if we don't give black women a chance, who do we expect to give black women a chance? Do you know what I'm saying? So, and it's not just about giving a black woman a chance once. It's about the fact that it has to be
What
repeat.
you were saying,
It has to be repeat. They start off as a trainee, then they have to come in as an assistant, then they come in as a head of department, and you have to move them up. That's how you, yeah, it has to be sustainable.
And if you can't do the sustainability thing, you know, don't even try it, because then you build somebody up to kind of let them down.
Yeah.
If I had to come to you close and say, I want you to mentor me, what's your answer to me?
I've taken people, sometimes I can't because I'm a very small company, so sometimes I can. But one of the most successful producers in this industry is Nonhlanhla Dlamini. Nonhlanhla Dlamini was working in a call center. She bugged me for 8 months, and she came to work under me for a year. And Nonhlanhla Dlamini is one of the top producers in this country. Natalie Harhoff has won me BAFTAs as whatever. I employed her as a camera person for my first documentary when she had just come out of film school. Sisi Ngobile, who is a big commissioning editor at the SABC, I trained her when she was at Nemisa Film School. The list goes on. I have specifically looked for women. I work with women, and I'm unapologetic about it, because actually, to be quite honest, I don't think guys are that smart when you work with them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Women multitask, women, we are very, and also women can be emotional, and I like that, and sensitive, because I deal with work where film is about people. So I can give you a list. So it depends, you know what I mean? But I train people, and when I train them, I am tough, but you must be the best when you leave me.
Okay, so any one of you can answer this. I believe that men and women speak at different frequencies, right? And so if something happens at work and I'm running the team, I used to, you know, I'd keep quiet, and then I'd go and like internalize and be like, and then the next day, like I come back and I want to talk about it. And my dad was like, here's a bit of advice from, because you're always moaning about this specific person. The next time they disrespect you in front of people, call them out immediately, so that you just like, okay, we are here, let's do it, and then you move on, because then you don't change the dynamics of what's going on. So when it's happening to you, because it is a male-dominated industry, so you're going to go like this with a few male heads, what's your approach?
Well, I would say that certainly you can say that it's something that doesn't come easy, you know, for many women. But I agree with your dad that, you know, if you do not deal with it immediately, you can be guaranteed that you are going to lose 80% ground and respect after that. And climbing back in terms of getting that credibility back is going to take you that much more. And oftentimes, I would say for women, it's the fear as to what are people going to say. But in reality, you know what? You deal with it head on, and you know what? The sun will rise the following day. And in fact, the following day, people would have even greater respect for you, and life will go on. And everyone will know what you're about and what you're not about.
Are we echoing?
No, she's right. I mean, also another thing, to be quite honest with me, you don't have to like me. We are making
like you so much,
you don't have to like me. And mina, usiswami lo uyandazi. I say it boom, 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 boom. And there is no hanara, and we are good after that. But that is just how I am. And then they say you are bossy, you are this. Nonsense.
I've never heard of a man being called bossy.
There is nothing like that. I've never heard of a man being called bossy. I've never heard. I'm not aggressive, I'm assertive. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Unfortunately, I learned in my 30s that girls, women need to do away with guilt. Guilt is a killer. You don't have to, and I don't care actually what you think about me. All I know is that I'm hot.
And that's all that matters.
All that matters.
What are your management styles like? Because that's the thing we forget.
I'm very different because I think when I started off, there was so much pressure in our industry when I started. So I'm just like, are you going to do this? And if you say no, then I just do it myself. I don't have time to argue.
But that could be detrimental.
I think
hey?
it's very detrimental, but it's because my temper is scary.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I know myself well enough to know not to get too angry.
But you know, that's fine, because if that's your management style and it works for you,
it works
I
for
think it works for
me.
you. But please don't take on all the workload yourself. There's no glory in that.
No, there's no glory. But if we're fighting about the fact that I want this thing to be done, and now you want to challenge me because now I don't know whether you think it's because I'm a woman or what must. I'm like, okay, what can happen? It must happen. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm like, it's already done. Can we move on to the next thing, please? Because I don't have time for this.
And it's fine because you'll find that people will be too quick to judge that's
management
as,
style.
You know, micromanagement.
Yeah.
And but sometimes, you know, especially if you know what got you to where you are, because what got us to where we are is hard work. None of us really are where we are because anyone did us any favors.
We worked harder.
We worked hard to
We
get
don't
to where
earn
we
as
are.
much even until now. And if they are talking about filmmakers in this country, they will always mention the men. Hello. And you know what I'm trying to say? And so as women, you are always contesting public space. And you must never go away. You must keep reinventing, you must keep fighting, and they will say whatever, but you must just keep at it. Because she has the hardest job of them all. I don't envy her job because basically you are in charge of monies that are supposed to go to different filmmakers. And the decisions that you make and all of that. And I just wish we could just not have a sense of, you know what I mean? A sense of thinking that I deserve that money. We must stop that. You know what I mean? Your pocket is so small, but for so many people. And whoever gets, it's okay. And if we don't get, it's okay.
Listen, there might be thunder outside, but there's a lot more thunder in here.
I'm telling you.
Quickly, before I go to the ad break, did you guys plan the Dukes?
No!
Thanks to Kolisa Sitole. Look out for her work. She's amazing. Mukupi Shale. My conversation with Zamam Kosi carries on after this. You're watching Real Talk. Welcome back. It's Real Talk with me, Anele, on SABC 3. So when you find your passion in life, that passion can act as the compass that guides you to where you're truly meant to be. This was the case with Zamam Kosi, a qualified lawyer by profession. She was always drawn to media, in particular film and television. So when she found a way for law and creativity to coexist, it paved the way to her current role as the Chief Executive Officer of our National Film and Video Foundation. So I want to speak about the 10 filmmakers that you sponsor every year. What's the criteria there? How do I make it to part of the top 10? And what work do you look for to just even before to prove that I'm worthy of this?
Well, maybe to backtrack and give a bit of the context, I mentioned it a bit earlier, that those 10 filmmakers are informed first by what we wanted to focus on, which was transformation of the industry. And transformation for the industry, we were defining it not just in terms of race, but we're very clear that gender transformation was going to have to be key. Secondly, age transformation. So hence, we introduced a program that focused on 10 women filmmakers as well as 10 youth filmmakers. So there are 2 programs. So at the end of the day, you end up with 20 films, 10 being made by women filmmakers and another 10 being made by young people. But over and above that, because we want to make sure that there is success, we provide for them a mentorship company. But that mentorship production company needs to itself be women-owned, and the other one needs to be youth-owned. because we also do not want to say, you know, young people are perpetual trainees and women are perpetual trainees. We realize that women find themselves at different levels, and therefore we also give them an opportunity to impart that skill onto the next generation of women filmmakers. So it becomes a very competitive call. We put out a call out there, it's open to the public, and we have got women-owned production companies that come and pitch. And it's often very competitive, and I think it has shown a huge success.
I think when it comes to transformation, the biggest loophole and the biggest letdown of transformation, you know, and the word, you know, since 1994 was that it's so easy for me to put a woman as the face of it and at the forefront and be like, you know, now Zama, and then meanwhile back at the ranch, it's old, it's white, it's male, right? So, and now you find yourself having to be, you know, a person who grows the film industry and an investigator.
You know, and the thing is, it still happens to this day. I mean, it's 2017, and we still have fronting as an issue. But, you know, we try to preempt that in a couple of ways, whether in terms of how we set the criteria, and we also invite people to come and pitch. So we do not just take the paperwork. We say the teams must come and pitch. And from those pitches, Anele, I tell you, what you see is shocking sometimes. You see that, you know, the black woman comes in and all she does is introduces everybody. And in certain instances, I've heard when the black woman can't even remember the name of the white partner because they've just met and they've just brought her in. Unfortunately, it still happens to this day. But we are able to, because we've put those checks and balances in place so that we can see that when it happens and not approve. But also during the production, we are very much involved in terms of approving the teams as they go along, and we work on terms of milestones and paying terms of milestones. So we try as much as we can. But still throwing the challenge back to industry, because at the end of the day, transformation is not government's mandate. It's not government's problem. At the end of the day, it's got to be industry itself feeling that, you know what, this is something that is in the interest of developing the industry. Because it's about an inclusive economy. It's not about just saying, oh, we've got to do black people a favor and start bringing them in. That's not it. If we are to survive and for this industry to grow, it needs to tap in all of our resources. And at the moment, it isn't.
So, I mean, what the beauty about you, and this is why I'll always like bow down to you, is that I can go to any function, any TV function, any film function. There's a movie premiere, there's a show premiere. Every time you're there and you're supporting, right? So you would be the best person to answer this question, you know, and at the helm of where you are, what do you want to see more of when it comes to our television and film industry?
I would like to see more young people who are brave enough and are being given an opportunity by the stalwarts to showcase their new ways of doing things. You know, the film industry has been going on the way that it has for now, but for sustainability into the future, we need a certain shake-up. We need to be challenged in terms of how we are telling stories. We need to be challenged in terms of the business models in the film industry. And at the moment, I think there's a bit of that stagnation that is happening, that quite a majority of the filmmakers are hanging on a lot to the old ways of doing things, and we are not giving
old stories,
and we're not giving enough opportunity to more dynamic storytelling. I wish actually NVF will fund a lot more of those risky projects, because we need to ensure that, you know, we are ahead of the game. We've got, I mean, our continent has got huge opportunities, but we're not looking into those, and perhaps we're still looking more at European and American models of doing things, instead of innovating and coming up with our own solutions within the continent and tapping into that market.
And here's the thing, because, you know, if social media is anything to go by, we are so creative as a country, right? We are creative, we are funny, we are daring, we're brave. We are content drivers, yet when it's time for us to see it, you know, on a professional level, such as films and TV, dololo.
At a business model level, Anel, because at the end of the day, I've always made this commitment, you know, on the intro that you said, that I will never make a living out of something I'm not passionate about. I've just made that commitment about myself. Whatever work I choose to do or not do, I've got to be passionate about. And I am in this role because I am passionate about people who are passionate about what they do. But what often irks me is when those people who are passionate and they're giving their all into an industry are not able to get the returns.
Yeah.
They're not able to put food on their kids' table just because they are living their passion, and that should not be. Hence, the work that I would like to do is to make sure that we change the business model of the industry so that every filmmaker, every creative person that is out there living their passion, they do not have to go begging to a government agency like the NFVF in order to make their next film all the time.
Okay, thank you. Like, I'm voting for you the next time around. Thank you so much to the CEO of the NFVF, Samam Kosi. Stay right where you are. When we come back, we'll talk to women who've had to climb over the glass ceiling in advertising. Whoa, another industry. Stay with us. Welcome back to Real Talk. So it was actor John Hamm and his fellow cast members who made the drama series Mad Men a global success. The show transported viewers to an advertising agency set in the 1950s, where the only position women could fill was to be some man's secretary, really. Fast forward to 2017, a lot of that has changed, and my guests are living proof of this. I'd like to welcome two more amazing women onto the couch. The first with accolades and awards that read like a novel. She started out as an apprentice copywriter in the 90s to now holding the title of CEO of Grey Advertising Africa, Fran Lacken. She's joined by the founder and the CEO of what is probably South Africa's largest independent black female-owned advertising agency. Her name is Mona Lisa Zwambila. Welcome, Fran. Welcome, Mona Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay, I'm just glad you guys had time for me, because advertising people never have time. You're always chasing something, a pitch, a deadline, right? When you watch advertising depicted on TV shows, what do you look at and you're like, oh my word, what a lie. I wish it was like that.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about the industry right now, your other guests were talking around transformation. And so for me, especially running a black-owned agency, I think one of the things is stereotypical black ads.
Yeah.
And that's obviously something that we try and move away from. You know, insights are important in terms of understanding who you're talking to, and to really come up with something that's authentic, speaks to brand, and obviously communicates with consumers. So that's really big for us.
But Fran, how do you, because with advertising, once a client trusts a specific agency, they want them and then they're with them for 20 years.
Well, not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore.
Really? Is that changing?
No, it's changed a lot.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah, well...
Slowly. It's changing slowly.
Yeah. I mean, we're moving away from a kind of retainer model where you sort of were retained for, you know, on a monthly fee for 20 years or so, to more of a project basis. A lot of clients are moving more on a project basis.
So you'll find, say...
They never actually put a ring on it. They simply, you know, you just work project to project.
Oh, okay. So say, you know, Vodacom has like a summer campaign. They won't necessarily always go with grey. They'll look around when it's time to have
they have an agency of record, but a lot of the smaller corporates will often we'll work from a project to project basis. And it's also not unusual for one client to have a lot of different agencies. So the model is quite different now. You can't really relax and just get complacent. Which is
they
good.
look at a hybrid model. So very small retainer and then a lot of project work that sits above that.
Yes.
So you're always on your toes just to make sure you
the days of the long
clients.
lunch and having whiskey for breakfast.
Moving away from that.
Okay, so it's not all rock and roll there. People are actually working now.
Unfortunately, there's very little rock and roll. I was told, because I got into advertising in the 90s.
Yeah.
Which I'm embarrassed to admit, but I was told the 80s was the time to be in advertising, and I missed...
You missed
I missed the 80s. Apparently, it was amazing. But yeah, I just missed out on all that.
How often do you have to push up against someone because you find that you are just being disrespected because you're a woman, and I suppose because you're black?
Yeah. Well, the industry is changing. I think transformation is still a big play that has to happen. You still have your big multinationals, as you know, and so I think us independents have to fight, you know, against that, you know, on a regular basis. And I think what's happened, I've been running Riverbed for 10 years now, and so obviously the higher up you go up the ladder, truth is, the more white and male it gets.
Yes.
And that's really what we're up against a lot of the time. So you find we obviously have to work a lot harder. Creative ideas really have to be strong. And you need to be able to compete, you know, just in terms of cost efficiencies as well. So that's really been important. And that's how we compete, you know, in this space.
So, I mean, Fran, do you find that, you know, Sheryl Sandberg wrote this book, Lean In, Lean In.
Yes,
when you're at the board table, lean in, lean in. Did you read it? Did you roll your eyes? Did you read it and think, oh my word, this is where my life is?
I did read it and I enjoyed it. She was obviously coming from a specific place of being a married woman with children and having that. you know, my experience was quite different, but I've always been quite bossy and quite outspoken.
Yeah.
And so I always just felt that I had something to say, and I wanted to say it. And sometimes I look back at things, you know, how outspoken I've been in a meeting or whatever, and feel embarrassed. In fact, frequently I do. But I've always just spoken out. And I think she had something vital to say, which is that very often women, they underrate themselves. They think they don't have a contribution to make. And I always try and encourage, you know, women to speak out. I've always done it. Sometimes I look back and I go, wow, was that a clever thing to say? But, you know, it hasn't really held me back, I don't think.
Honestly speaking, do you think that if somebody doesn't have that personality that you have and they're female, can they make it in that advertising industry?
Look, I'm an introvert, so I studied speech and drama, which helped me to fake that extroversion.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am quite, you know, I don't necessarily love public speaking. I don't always love speaking up in a meeting, but I've had to.
You're doing well here, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've had to force myself, and it has helped. Yeah. Unfortunately, our industry does favour extroverts of either sex. To be honest, you need to be able to speak up. It is about personalities, and so it's just about, as an extrovert, sort of as a leader who's come through that, I have to try and be very aware of women who may not be as outspoken and give them a chance to speak. Or if I feel like they aren't getting to speak up in a meeting, call them out, or, you know, give them a chance to talk, or speak to them afterwards.
Okay, speaking of being a female leader in the advertising game, pitches can go on up until the wee hours of the morning where you're planning what you're going to do, you know, handing in the graphic. Is the copy on time? Is this the tone we want to take? If I'm a mother and, you know, I'm now in this field, sometimes I'm a single mother. Come on, this is South Africa, guys. Most households are single mothers, right? And now I must be at work at 1 in the morning and I must be a mother. Are you sensitive to that? And are you aware that I will sometimes hide that I'm going through those struggles because I don't want to be judged at work?
Yeah. Look, it's a very hard struggle. And obviously, being an entrepreneur, I've had to fight that same battle, you know, so sleepless nights. I don't believe in balance. I think to be able to get to where you are, you need to put in the time, put in the hours, and you need to find a support structure of some sort to be able to manage both family, you know, and work. And something has to give, unfortunately, and those become the sacrifices we make. But I think as Riverbed has grown as an agency, we've become a lot more sensitive and aware to those challenges. And you know, when we look at the sector, I mean, I think, and it's probably a global statistic, but I think there's probably something like 3% female creatives. You know, I think it's a global statistic, but even in South Africa, the number of ECDs that are female or creative directors that are female is a very, very small number.
It is slightly better here, I think, than globally.
So it's a very small number.
Oh, we're so much better.
And I've been thinking about why, but I think one of those reasons is because as women we have children, you know, we have other duties and responsibilities, and the ad industry demands a lot of your time. You know, those late hours take their toll, and it is, you know, it's not for the faint-hearted in that regard, or people that have more responsibilities outside of work.
Although it can be managed. We all have laptops. We all have laptops now, and it's possible to say, it's possible to say, okay, divide up the tasks so that person can go home, can put the kids to bed or bath or whatever, and then work later. I mean, some of my best creatives are working moms because they get the job done. They don't muck about. There's no smoking in the garden. There's no chit chat. They get in and they're not on. You know, they get onto it. And so some of the best creative directors I've worked with have been working moms.
Guys, thank you for your time. You've enlightened us. I hope somebody's sitting at home and they're like, that's what I'm going to do. Thanks to Fran. Thanks to Mona Lisa. It's been such an eye-opener spending time with all of the impressive women that we had on the show today. Talk about boss lady goals. One thing for sure is the wheels are turning, but quite slowly, but they're still turning. A big thanks to the guests. Thanks to you for joining us. Tomorrow we'll have the first family of Maskande right here. Iyashi Limhlope with his noble family. They'll be here. Tell everybody. Goodbye.